All yours.
Perfect, we got it. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to another live community classroom with Michaels. We have our friend Marley Bird with us today to learn how to make this adorable bunny garland. My name is Renee L. from Yarn Inspirations, and I'll be helping with any questions you might have during today's class. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll make sure that Marley answers them. While we're getting ready to kick things off, let us know where you're watching from and tell us what you're doing for Easter. Over to you, Marley.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. I see some familiar faces, which is nice. So hi. We're going to make some bunny garland. And I think I made this last year about the same time frame. And if I remember correctly, we really have to be rocking and rolling to get through as much of this as possible. So having said that, I'm going to say go through things quicker, not quickly, but quicker than I normally would if this were like an absolute beginner course, because I do know that we are getting recorded and you can go back and rewatch things. Okay. Please do ask questions in the chat and such, because I've asked Renee to like jump in and say, hey, Marley, we have a question. So she will be able to stop me as we're going along, but hopefully you already have the link to the pattern and I'm ready to jump in when you are. So let's go ahead and let's get this rocking and rolling. So we're going to go down to my hands. Here we are. So I printed off the pattern for me today, so it's easier for me to look at. And if you've never looked at a pattern from Yarn Inspirations before, and this is your first look, let me just give you a quick guide. Over here is where you will notice the yarn you will need, the hook size you should have, and your stitch markers and any little bits of extra stuff you might need. Now, having said that, your hook size can be anything you want to make the bunny garland as large or as small as you want. And this project is made using Red Heart with Love. I'm using Red Heart Super Saver today. Any worsted weight yarn actually would work, so you would be okay. As far as colors, obviously I printed this off in black and white, but you could make these any color you want. I thought the pink looked good on camera. That's why we're gonna choose that today for our project. Over here, this is where you're going to find really the most detailed information of what you need really to complete your project. If you get gauge, each bunny measures about 7.5 inches tall. The bunny motifs are worked as one piece at the beginning, at the bottom. Okay. The bunny motifs are worked as one piece, beginning with the bottom, which is worked in the round using the puff stitch. The head and ears are then worked and added on as rows without fastening off the previous yarn. So we're going to attempt to do that the best we can. If I remember last time I struggled with it a little, we're going to do that again. We're going to work on front post half double crochets. We're going to do a puff stitch, which really eats up some yarn, and then single crochet 2 togethers. This is one of the biggest things I remember from last time that I wanted to make sure we do point out. The chain 1, at the end of the puff stitch, you'll notice that you do this whole puff stitch, then there's a chain 1 at the very end. That chain 1 does not count as the chain 1 in your instructions. When we get to the instructions, what you will notice is once you create your puff stitch, it says then chain 1. So to complete the puff stitch, we will chain 1 to complete the stitch, and then we'll chain 1 to complete our pattern. All right, that will make sense as we go along. We're going to start with an adjustable ring. If you don't like the adjustable ring and you want to do like a chain 2 and then work 8 single crochets in the first chain, you can do that as well. But we're going to jump in with an adjustable ring, and I'm going to show you the easiest way I know how. So I'm going to grab my yarn. Let me just get some pulled out here. And one of the things I love about Super Saver, you guys, is I'm always able to find my end, like coming in, right? Like I never have guts. Like that's the best thing about Super Saver. I love it. All right. So we are going to start off very similar to how I do my slip knots. So if you've watched my stuff, but I almost said if you watched my show before, if you've seen my classes before, you've seen me do slip knots. So I put the tail of the yarn in my hand, take my working yarn, I wrap it around my forefinger and my middle finger. And when I come back up, I cross that over. Then I rotate my hand over. I'm going to just hold that yarn right there so that I can see I have like just a grip on the tails. I'm going to go underneath the front loop, grab the back loop and pull it up. What I just pulled up, that's what I want to put on my hook. Okay. Where my fingers are right there in this section, that's actually where we're going to create our stitch. So as I pull my fingers out, that crossover right there, that's the crossover that happened when we crossed over in the back of our fingers. I'm just going to kind of pinch that crossover and not let it go anywhere. Okay. So as I pinch that crossover, I've pulled up this loop. I like to do a chain one to kind of secure everything. And so I've left this big area open where my fingers were. I have this sort of crossover section. That's where I'm going to pull the tail and it's going to close my adjustable ring. And at this point, I will just start single crocheting into this ring. Now I'm going to show you this one more time because I know that that's really like, that was like, okay, so I see it. Let's do it again. Tail in my hand, working yarn, wraps around my forefinger and my middle finger. And when I come back up, I cross over. That crossover right there, that's the crossover we're going to hang on to. So when I rotate my hand over, if I go underneath my front loop and pull up the back loop, just pull it up. There's my crossover. You see it right there? I'm just going to kind of pinch it and not let it go anywhere. So as I take my fingers out, I pinch it. I go ahead, I like to chain one just to kind of just secure everything. And that's where I am. Okay. So at this point, we start doing 8 single crochets into this big space. So I'm just going to go into this space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. And I'm just literally working over that entire crossover. Okay. Just going into that big gap. And I would do 8 single crochets. So that was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, here's the benefit of the adjustable ring or magic loop, what people call. You can see our crossover is right there, right? We could keep putting single crochets in here all we want. But what happens is I'm going to take the tail and I'm essentially going to grasp that last single crochet we did. And I'm going to pull that tail and it's going to tighten up that loop. So now our beginning is virtually invisible. Does everybody see that? Can you see that? Okay. I am using a size I hook. That's what the pattern called for. So that's why I chose that. But it's at this point, you then would take your loop on your hook and you would join with a slip stitch to your first single crochet, which I think is this one. I'm going to count just to make sure because I always count. So I'm going to just join with a slip stitch and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Does everybody see that? Yeah, is that good? All right. Just because I know some people are going to ask, I'm going to set this down. If the adjustable ring is too difficult for you, I don't want that to be a reason why you don't make this project. So let me show you something. If you do your slip knot, and I'm going to change hooks just so that you can easily see it compared to this darker yarn. If you do your slip knot and you chain 2, and then into that first chain right there, if you just put your 8 single crochets into that chain, so I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. If I join with the slip stitch to the first single crochet, I still get my ring, but it has a hole in the center. I'm not going to stress about it because when everything is done, I can take my tail and I can close that hole. All right. So if you cannot do an adjustable ring, don't let that be the reason you don't make this project because we can close that hole later with our tail. All right. So this is another way you can start. All right. Just the benefit of doing this is because we don't have to close it. It's already closed. All right. Here we go. So Right here, it says place a marker to indicate the beginning of the round. So I'm going to place a marker right here. It's in the last stitch. So that way I know it's at the beginning of the round. And we're going to do round 2. Everybody with me so far? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to do a chain 1. And now it says a puff stitch in the same stitch as the chain 1. So this is going to be our first stitch, and we're going to do a puff stitch. So that's where, I guess I have to go back to my correct size hook, right? So the puff stitch was on page 1. Right here are the instructions. So for the puff stitch, we yarn over our hook, go into the stitch that we did our slip stitch into, yarn over and pull up a loop. And it says we're going to do that until we get 9 loops on our hook. So we yarn over our hook, go into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 and 7. There's 8 and 9. Okay, so I have 9 loops on my hook. I will yarn over and draw through all of the loops on my hook. And then this is where we're going to do that chain 1. And that chain 1 just closes our puff stitch. It does not count as what the instructions tell us to do right here, where it tells us to chain 1, right? Do the puff stitch and then chain 1. Then it says puff stitch in the next stitch and then chain 1 7 times. So we're going to come out with 8 puff stitches. So there's my puff, and then I chain 1. So we're going to work around this together. So I yarn over my hook, go to the next stitch, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm pretty sure that's 9 loops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yarn over, pull through all 9 loops, chain 1 closes that puff, and then we chain 1 stitch. We do it again. Yarn over, go to the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over, draw through all of those stitches, and then draw through for that final chain 1 to finish the puff, and then chain 1 to go to the next. So I'm going to keep going here and get some yarn. Renee, how are we doing? I know that start can be a little bit tricky for people, but the good news is we're getting recorded, so you'll be able to go back and rewatch it anytime you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, some folks were asking about the recording, so we let them know. Y'all, you can go check this out in about 24 to 48 hours. So sometimes it's just great to watch, honestly, and then go back in afterwards. One thing I will say is Carmen said, my puff stitch is so tight. Do you have any maybe tips for tension,
Yes,
Marley?
I do. So when I do puff stitches, let me do my chain 1 here. You watch what I do. So I yarn over, I'll go into the stitch, yarn over, and when I pull up, I don't just leave my yarn I yarned over and pulled up. I don't leave it down there. Notice I bring, essentially, if you were to think of this as parallel to this, I bring my hook up so that it stretches out that loop. This is one of the few times that I don't make it so that my first pull up is the same size as my hook, because it's obvious, right? That yarn I just pulled up, it's much larger. That loop is much larger than my hook. So when I pull it up, that gives me some height to my yarn over, and then my pull through and I pull up. So I make it parallel again, yarn over, go in, yarn over, pull up, parallel again. I think I have one more to do, yarn over, pull up. And so now I've pulled them all up to where they're all the same height, and it's essentially the same height as the rest of the row, right? So I made them all the same height. Yarn over, pull through all of them. And then that final draw through and pull through cleans them all up and makes them puff out.
Oh, it's amazing.
And then
Thank you so much for showing us that.
hopefully that worked well. Hopefully you guys can see how that works. So I pull up, and you'll notice I just kind of just go like this. It's like I rest my hook on my previous puff, and I use that as like my guide of how big. And then you'll notice also when I do my yarn over, I hold that yarn over in place.
Mm-hmm.
And then I insert, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up. And I got to count because I didn't count before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So one more. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up. So they're all the same height. Yarn over, pull through all of them, chain 1 to finish, and then chain 1. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have one more to do. So I yarn over and do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, pull through, finish, chain 1. And then it tells me I got to pull this through. Want to make sure I'm reading the directions exactly as you guys are, so that way I don't leave you hanging. Join the last chain 1 to the top of the first puff stitch. So I did my chain 1. This is the top of the first puff stitch right there. So I will join there. Can I just tell you, I don't really know why I had to mark this down here because we don't even use it. So I don't know why I had to mark it, which is rare for me to ever say. I don't know why I'm using a stitch marker.
I was just gonna say.
Everybody's like, what did she just say? This is an imposter. No. Now let's make sure I did join to the top of the first puff because I feel like it should be here. I think I need to go over one. It's always tricky, right? Because we have, so there's my chain 1. That's the chain 1, which is the top of the puff, right? I think it's this. I think it's that one. And we'll find out like once I get everything done. Well, it looks good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Everybody with me? Oh, I should have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I should have 8. I should have one more. It's right there. Renee, it's because you're talking to me.
I know. I was going to make a joke about how you're the president of the Stitch Marker fan club, but I was like, let me hold that till she's done counting.
Okay, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. It's because I got caught up on 7 because I'm supposed to do a 7 more times. 7 times, right? So 7 times more. I mean, show of hands, how many of you have done that in a pattern before? I mean, I know I'm not the only one that you're like, oh shoot, I was supposed to do one more. There we go. That looks better. Look, it's not cupping in on itself either. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. All right. Carol,
Awesome.
You're supposed to remind me of these things, my friend. Okay. So here we are, round 3. We're going to chain 1. We're still working in the round. So we're going to chain 1 and we're going to do a puff stitch in the same stitch, then chain 1 and puff stitch in the chain 1 space. Chain 1 and repeat from start around. Oh my gosh, lots of puff stitches. We're going to get 16 of them. All right, y'all. So here I go. I'm not even going to use a stitch marker. I mean, I could. You know what? I'm going to put a stitch marker because it says to put it in the top of the first puff. So when I finish the first puff stitch, that's where I'm going to use my stitch marker. All right. So I've chained 1 and here's our puff stitch. It says into the seam here. So we'll do this one here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull them up, pull through, pull through. So if that chain 1 is the top of my puff stitch, it's right there. So that's where I'm going to put my marker. All right, so I'm going to be making puff stitches. Here we go. And you're absolutely right. I am a fan of stitch markers.
We talk about it every class. I wanted context for the people.
Yes, right. It's because I have actually had people ask me on YouTube videos if I could do stuff without stitch markers, like it's a crutch or something. And I'm like, yeah, I can, but why would I? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, because they're supposed to help me keep track of where I am, right? And keep my place. And so if it's a tool to help me complete an item, why not use it? Especially when it's a tool that you can use with beginners, especially to help them see what they're doing and where they're supposed to put their hook. I think they're very, very useful. So plus, you know what? It really freaks people out. Here's a side note. When you're making something in public, and you're using stitch markers, right? Maybe you're using a really pretty stitch marker, like ones you've made, right? Like, I mean, guys, I have so many stitch markers. Maybe you're using something dangly and you're making something in public and it's for a baby, right? So somebody comes up to you and they're like, oh my gosh, what are you making? You're like, oh, it's a baby hat. And they see all these dangly bits from it. And they're like, don't you know those are choking hazards? And you're just like, yes, I know. They aren't actually in the project. They're there for my help. 2, 4, 6. And they're like, oh, okay. And then people are like, oh, that's really fascinating. It just sometimes feels like it's jewelry for your knitting, jewelry for your crochet. And so it really, I don't know. I like to free people out sometimes. Is it just me? Is it just me? Everybody else? Anybody else like
Give people a
what?
little scare once in a while. It keeps life exciting.
It's like when you're knitting with double pointed needles and you have 5 needles, right? But you're really still only just working with 2. The other needles are just hanging out, but you look like you're some sort of a magician when you're doing it. And people just are like, she's so good at knitting. She can knit with 5 needles. You're just like, yes, I am the Houdini of knitting. It's crazy. All right. I'm guessing you guys know how to do these puff stitches. And if you don't, you're going to be very familiar with these by the time you're done with this round, because it's a lot of puff stitches. 2, 3, 4. If you haven't noticed, obviously I yarn over and go into that stitch 4 times to give me my 9. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 1. Halfway there, y'all. 1, 2, 3, 4. All of them. Chain 1 and chain 1. How are the comments going? Everybody looking good?
Yeah, we might have covered this already. Which stitch do you use for each subsequent puff stitch? So which stitch are we going into?
So the chain 1. So you
Chain
go
1,
into the
okay.
puff and then the chain 1. So I'm going into the top of the puff and then the chain 1 space between it. That's what
Okay, yeah.
So like right now I'm
Perfect.
getting ready to go into the top of the puff stitch. 2.
Okay, hopefully that makes sense, Carmen.
4.
Let me see what else we got.
And then right now, so that was on top of that puff stitch. So now I'm going into that chain 1 space between. 1.
I'm glad to see some other folks are in the stitch marker fan club. It really is really nice for longer chains. Yeah, I will do every 10 stitches or something just to kind of, that way I can't mess up.
No, it just makes life so much easier. I do it all the time. 2, 3, 4. I'm working on a largish baby blanket. I mean, that sounds like it's an oxymoron, right? But it's a big baby blanket. And I have stitch markers every 20 stitches. And so I'm just like, okay, I know that that's a full repeat. That's why I have my stitch markers there, like across the row. I'm like, that's a repeat, that's a repeat. So that way it just reminds me of where I am in the pattern. They're just very helpful, I think.
Agreed. It's one thing you don't have to think about.
I know, right?
Oh, Dawn is also a 10 stitch then stitch marker. Amazing. I feel like a lot of people probably do it in multiples of 10, or I guess it depends on the pattern. Like if it's, an odd number for chaining.
Right. It's gonna do 1. All right, so I should, if I did things right, I should be ending with my chain 1 space, which is what I'm gonna do. And then I'm gonna count, see if I have 16. 2, 3, 4. Oh, I lost it. There it is. And then chain 1, and I should be joining the top of this one. So I'm gonna go like that, and then I'm gonna count before I go much further. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I feel like I should get a prize. I have Anybody else do this? It's like, okay, you get a prize, you get to eat a Starburst. Right? It's like those are my my treats. Okay. All right. So we just finished round 3. I know, sorry guys. This is life. This is life with Marley. Should have a like a real TV show with it. Although you guys would probably be very bored. Just gonna say. Okay, so for round 4, it says we're going to chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch, 2 single crochets in the chain 1 space, and then we have an asterisk. So let's start with this. So we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet in that same stitch. So we joined into the puff stitch. So I'm going to single crochet into that same stitch. I'm going to put my marker there just because that's the top of my first stitch of the round. Okay. Now it says 2 single crochet in the chain 1 space. So that would be right here. So I'll do 1 and 2. It says single crochet in the next stitch. So this is my next stitch is the puff. So I'll do 1 and then 2 in the next chain 1. So 1 and 2. Repeat from star around, join with the slip stitch at the first single crochet. So we're doing single crochets. So anytime you get to a puff stitch, you're going to do 1 single. Then the next chain 1 space, you're going to do 2 singles. And then 1 single. And then 2 singles. We're making great time, you guys, just so you know. Because those puff stitches, they just take up a lot of time to make.
Yeah, we're doing great on time.
Yeah, I'm assuming all of you know how to do single crochets, so I'm not going super slow on these. I think the hardest part with the single crochet after doing puff stitches and such is not yarning over your hook before you start the single.
Yeah, once you're in the rhythm.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've done that where all of a sudden I'll have a row of half doubles instead of singles. And I'm like, what did I do? I'm gonna have to go back and count just to make sure I did it right, because as I'm talking and doing this, sometimes I will forget one or put one too many somewhere. All right, so this would end with my chain 1. So I have 2 there. Join with a slip stitch to the first. I'm going to join with a slip stitch, and I'm going to count 48. So let's see if we have 48 here. So I'll leave that there. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48. I get another starburst. So, all right, we have our body complete. Everybody else look like this? Look good? Yes? Okay, see a lot of you watching. Okay, it should be flat. You have all your puff stitches. We have this full round of single crochets. It kind of, that finishes off the body of our piece. So now, if you look at the bunnies here, you can see we're going to start working back and forth at this point. We're going to work back and forth right here. And I'm going to read through the instructions with you and work together, and we're going to make this happen. So this is the head. All right. And the head, they do some post stitches on here. The front post half double crochets, we'll work those as well. So I'm going to row 1. And so we are not finishing up our yarn. We continue on. It says beginning working in back and forth rows. We're going to chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch. So we're going to single crochet right here. And I'm going to go ahead and mark that stitch just because I can. Single crochet in the same stitch and in the next 8 stitches. So that's 1. So then I have 8 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that would give me 9 total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, chain 2 counts as a half double crochet and turn. Half double crochet in the same stitch as the turning chain. All right, so that would be yarn over your hook. You're going to go right here into the very first one. So there's my half double into the same stitch as my turning chain and in the next 8 stitches across. So sounds to me, all right, hold on. Chain 2 counts as a half double crochet, turn, half double crochet in the same stitch as the turning chain in the next 8. So I'll have 10 total. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Should have marked down here top of my turning chain since that counted as a stitch. Okay, so I have 10 half double crochets. So I'm on row 3. This is what we look like so far. So row 3, it says chain 1 and turn. So I'll chain 1 and turn. Front post half double crochet around the first stitch and in each stitch across. So front post half double. You yarn over your hook. We're going to go around this first stitch here. So I'm going to go from right to left. So I go from right, go behind that, and come around the left side of the post. Yarn over, and then bring my hook back that same path. So back behind, back up, and then I just complete my half double. We're going to do that again. Yarn over your hook, go to the post of the next stitch. We're going to go into the right side, around the back, out the left side, yarn over, and then bring our hook back that same path. Behind the post, back over here to the right side of the post, yarn over and draw through all 3. Yarn over, right side of this post, around the back, out the left, yarn over, follow that same path up, and half double. So I'll do this all the way across. If you are left-handed, obviously you're going through you would be going through the left side around the back to the right. So you're just going the opposite direction, but you could still complete these. At the end, we should have 10, because we had 10 half double crochets here. Oh, take this one out, so I'm not going to need it. And then I'm going to go out the last one. There we go. 10 front post half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Chain 1 and turn. So this is our row 4. Skip the first stitch, single crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then single crochet 2 together. Single crochet in the next 3 stitches and single crochet 2 together. So we've chained 1. We skip the first stitch, single crochet in the next 2. So there's 1 and 2. Single crochet 2 together. So is what you do. You go into the first one, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next one, yarn over, pull up a loop. So you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, draw through all 3. That's a single crochet 2 together. Then I single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1 and 2 and 3. And then single crochet 2 together the last 2. So here's 1. I go to the last one, and over, pull up a loop, and draw through all 3. So I have 7 single crochets. Okay. Whew, we just finished the head. That's the head right there. How we doing so far? Everybody good? Anybody need to take a break? Everybody all right?
Everyone's doing well. Chrissy said, I love this project because it uses a lot of fun and interesting stitches. Agreed.
Yeah, it certainly does. I like how it has this definition right there of the front post half double crochets. It just kind of a little something different. It's fun. All right, so we're going to make our first ear. All right, so it says chain 1 and turn. So we ended right here. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. Skip the first stitch, single crochet in the next 2. So skip the first, single crochet in the next 2. So there's 1 and 2. Row 2, chain 1 and turn, single crochet in stitch and single crochet in, so in 3, we have 3 stitches here. So there's 1 and 2, and there's the third. So we had 1 single crochet in the first stitch, 2 single crochets in the next stitch. You see how we got the 3 stitches? Now it says rows 3 through 6. We're going to chain 1 and turn and single crochet in each stitch. So we're going to have 3 single crochets back and forth. All right, so you guys, I'm terrible at counting. So this is 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, so here we go. So we chain 1 and turn. This is our row 3. So we're going to do single crochets right here. All right, chain 1 and turn. This is our row 4. That's 1, 2, oops, go through both of those loops. 3, chain 1 and turn. This will be our row 5. Chain 1 and turn, and this is our row 6. So now I know I've done all 6 rows after I complete this. 1, 2, and 3. Row 6, work across. Cool. Woo. All right. Anybody else? Their mouth salivating because you're looking at Starburst. Row 7. So row 7 is chain 1 and turn. Skip the first stitch. 3 half double crochets in the next stitch. So I'm going to yarn over my hook, go into essentially the middle stitch. I'm going to put 3 half double crochets there. So 1, 2, and 3. Then it's slip stitch in the last stitch. So there's the last one. I'm going to work a slip stitch. And then I fasten off. So let's get my scissors here with my pom-pom so I don't lose them. Snip. I always like to do a chain 1 when I fasten off just to have that little knot. And that's the top of our ear. Pretty easy, right? All right, second ear. Skip the stitch near the inner edge of the first ear. Attach the yarn with the slip stitch to the next stitch. Then it says chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch, and 2 in the next stitch. So here we go. So inner ear, we're going to skip 1. So we're going to join it right here, right? And then it says single crochet in the same, and 2. Doesn't make sense to me. Hold on. Chain 1, skip the stitch in the inner ear of the first stitch, attach the yarn, slip stitch to the next stitch. So there's the first stitch of the closest to the inner ear. Attach the yarn with the slip stitch to the next stitch. So we're going to attach it right there. And then it says chain 1, single crochet in the same, and in the next 2. Yep, that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to join right here. So I'm going to grab my yarn. I leave a nice long tail so I can weave that in later. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull through the loop on our hook. Okay. Now we're going to chain 1, single crochet in this same stitch and in the next 2. So into this one and to this one. Row 2 is chain 1 and turn. Says 2 single crochets in the next stitch, single crochet in the next. So chain 1, turn, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, single crochet in the next 3. If I put 2, so I'm because I have 3 stitches there, so I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, right? Am I reading this weird, Renee? I mean, that's how I'm reading it.
Sorry, can you go back for a sec? What was
So
that?
here, I'm going to go back to row 1. Okay. So row 1, let's start here. It says skip the stitch of the inner ear, attach the yarn to the next stitch with a slip stitch. All right, so I did that. Then it says row 1, chain 1. I did that, single crochet in the same stitch, and in the next 2, right? That gives me three single crochets, right? Because you have one, well, you have one right here and then 2. So that gives me 3 singles. Then it says chain 1 and turn. So let's do that. Chain 1 and turn. 2 single crochets in the next stitch and a single in the next stitch. Well, I have 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. So if I put 2 here and 1 here, am I just skipping that one? Leaving that one unworked? Is that what I'm doing?
I think it gives you like a slight like narrowing or a slight angle, I think. Let's try it and see how it looks.
All right, that must be what's going on. All right, so I'm putting 2 into this one and 1 into this one. And I just leave that one unworked because I have 1 more stitch there. You should have 2 stitches in row 1 is what they're saying. Aha, I see it. I see it. Thank you.
Bless y'all. Sometimes we're looking at something
I was
for too
like,
long.
What am I missing here? I see it right here. I missed that dash. You see that dash right there? I missed it. So I read that as next 2 stitches. You know what I mean? That's what it is. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I know I'm missing something here. I know I'm missing something. Okay, now we're on. So there we go. So that's that. And then we chain 1, turn 2 into this one. So 1 and 2. And 1 into this one. Thank you. Okay. Sometimes your eyes just deceive you, right? So here we are. So 3, 4, 5, 6. Here we go. So chain 1 and turn. This is my row 3. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1 and turn. This is my row 4. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1 and turn. This is my row 5. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1 and turn. This is my row 6. 1, 2, and 3. Then my row 7 is chain 1 and turn. Skip 1. 3 half double crochets in your middle. So 1, 2, and 3. And then a slip stitch into the last and fasten off. I knew I was missing. I was like, I am missing something here. Fasten off. All right, so we have all these tails we can weave in. The bit that has that little edgy bit, that's the back, should be the back. This right here. How cute is that? That's adorable. So I'm going to take a second right now and weave in the ends because I really do not like crocheting over the ends. That's a whole nother hot topic we could talk about. But I'm just going to grab a bent tip tapestry needle. You can get these at your local Michael's. And I'm going to thread my tail into the bent tip. Now, here's the thing. When you're dealing with an adjustable ring, you cannot just put your tail in around here. We're going to have to make sure we essentially don't knot it, but we want to make sure that we get it to go back and forth to keep that middle of the piece closed. If you don't do that, it will gradually work its way open and all of your stitches will fall off. So if this were something more than just garland, like say you were making a blanket that had an adjustable ring start, and you did not take the time to actually weave in your tail, you just crocheted around it, it will come undone. And so all that work you put into something that you thought was going to be an heirloom to your grandkids or to your, whoever, it's going to fall apart. Okay. So you really want to make sure you take the time to weave in your tails. I never crochet over my tails. I shouldn't say never, but it is so incredibly rare. And when you're working on just a simple project like this, it's just real easy just to whip them in. I like to put them in at least three passes. So like there's one, then I usually will come down and come back. And I'll actually like split the yarn on the back side and go through the stitches. So that way it really grabs in there. When you're working with garland, I mean, this isn't something that shouldn't be getting like super crazy use, right? So it's not like you have to stress too much about the ends coming out. But I find it so much easier to do an edging when the edges are all, or not the edges, when the seams, gosh, I can't use my words, when my tails are all woven in. How many of you are like, ugh, I even hate watching people weave in tails. I don't like to weave them in. I even hate watching others do it. This is a big topic of discussion among a lot of us crocheters, right? Do you crochet over them? Do you crochet over them and then weave them in? Which in my opinion is you're still weaving them in. But those of you who just crochet over your tails and don't do anything else with them, I caution you, your work will come undone. But if you weave them in at some point, that's the important part. You have to weave in your tails. Make sure they're all put away. Some yarns are trickier than others, though, I will say. Like when you're working with like blanket yarn, that's a little bit trickier to hide, but it can be done.
Absolutely. We've talked about, there's one person at our office that loves weaving in ends. So we're trying to come up with a plan so that she's just going to weave in all of our ends for us. And you know what? I think that's genius.
You know what? I find it very therapeutic, and I keep all my ends. You guys want to see something? Here, I don't know if I've shown you guys this before. Can you go to my face real quick, Jimena? Like, can you guys see like my vase full of my tails? I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
it. Like
it's a little out of focus, but yes.
Is it here?
Oh, there we go.
This is my vase of all my tails. So as I finish them, plop, they just go in there. You know what? It's very satisfying. All right, you can go back to my hands. So people are like, she doesn't weave them in. I always do. And I keep them.
There's evidence.
It's very satisfying. And it's just within hand's reach. All right. Look how cute that is. That's adorable. That's adorable. Okay, so now we have our edging. So it says with the right side facing. If you don't know which one's the right side, I want to say, I mean, the side that has this ridge, that's the wrong side. Okay, so if you see the ridge, that's your wrong side. So to make sure you have the right side facing, which can we just talk about how you can go like this? How cute is that? Okay. Attach the yarn with the slip stitch to the back loop of the first stitch where the body and the head meet. So like this, the back loop where the body hit slip stitch, in back loops of each body stitch around, slip stitch to the end of the rounds. So slip stitch in the back loop, which would be right here where the body and the head meet. And then slip stitch in the back loops of each body stitch, slip stitch in the ends of the round, slip stitch in row ends and slip stitch around the head and the ears. So we're just going to slip stitch around this whole thing, essentially. All right. It's just to finish it off. So I'm going to just start with one and just come in through the ends and just poke it in and just slip stitch. You could do this in a different color if you wanted to, make it something different. I'm just going to the ends of the rows that we were working on. Do I work up and down like the ears? Yeah, the head and the ears join with the slip stitch. All right, well, we're just going to be slip stitching away.
While we're going through that, if everyone wants to tell us, what is your favorite like springtime palette? Like if you decorate, what are your colors? Or like, are you more of a bunny person or an egg person or a tulip person? Let us know, 'cause we like getting excited over seasonal things, so we loved hearing your ideas.
Definitely.
Like what color are you gonna do the bunnies in? Like all one or a few different ones? I like
Well,
this pink a lot.
I like this pink a lot too. And you know what? This would be really cute if like you were having a baby shower or something too. And it doesn't have to be pink or blue or anything, but they're just cute. So it doesn't just have to be for spring or Easter. Like they're
Hmm.
just adorable.
I love
These
the idea of making the garland like a permanent thing in the house and you just swap it out
like each
whenever the season
season,
changes.
that's
Yeah.
a cool idea. That's a cool idea. I probably would have done that like prior to kids. And then with kids, I'm just lucky if I swap my own clothes out every day. When I first had kids, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been wearing this shirt for like 3 days. No, I'm just joking.
Priorities. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just joking. You were like, she's gross. No, I'm just joking. You guys see, I'm just going through, making my way. You see that? It's just cleaning up the edges and making it a little bit more substantial. I'm going to go through both on that one. Okay, come over here and just work up the edge. Sometimes I'm going into like a chain of the edge. Sometimes I just poking in. I don't know. I'm just kind of doing what looks right to me, making sure it all looks nice and even. Any of you to this point, what are you doing? Are you doing a contrast color? Are you thinking you might do a contrast color?
Let me pop in the chat.
I know you said tulips, which are definitely spring, but you know, like as we get into, as summer starts rolling around and stuff, I love um, peonies. Like they're like
Yeah,
one of my favorite flowers.
same.
They're so beautiful. They usually
Yeah.
bloom sometime in like May-ish, depending on where you are in the world, I
It's a
guess.
really nice color story too. Like if you wanted to grab the peony colors, which is like a very, very pale pink and then a medium pink and then a
Yeah.
magenta, that would be,
Yeah.
if you like pink as much as I do and
If
Marley
pink is
does.
your signature color, um, anybody quote, name that quote, right? Pink is my signature color.
Yeah.
Then you will be a fan of peonies as well. So I'm back down here to the body, which is so much easier to go into. You can see here, I'm just going into the back loop only, and I'm just doing slip stitches all the way around until I get back to the beginning. And all this is going to do, it's really just cleaning up the edges of the bunny itself, and it's going to make it a little bit more substantial. Let's get all the way around.
Oh, Darlene said the azaleas are in bloom right now. Lots of pinks. I'm jealous.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh my gosh, Mary, she says, I have a hand crocheted Easter bunny on my front door. She has a carrot in one hand and a basket full of eggs in the other. That's amazing.
Wow.
You're my inspiration.
Wow. Right. I'm almost to the end here. I love slip stitches. I think they're so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It's that little detail, y'all. That little detail. Come back to the end here. I think this is where I joined the next one. So I'm gonna just join the slip stitch there. All right. Once again, tails. And you can add a pom-pom. You could do a little pom-pom maker if you want to get like a white and add an actual pom-pom, or if you just have some, some like gonna say like a little poof ball, you know, like just glue a little poof ball on it, or you could do anything you want to for the little bunny tails. Last one. How we doing? Oh, perfect time, y'all. So I made all this in a little bit less than an hour. You can too. So depending on how many bunnies you want to make for your garland, you can kind of, you know, guesstimate how much time it's going to take you to make each one. And honestly, after you make your first one, your other ones will probably go a lot faster. Because the first one, you know, it's really the learning one. It's like the first pancake, right? The first pancake's always the one that's a little bit wonky. It's just like, and by the time you get to the third pancake, everything's rocking and rolling. All right.
I love that metaphor.
Right? It's so true though. It's so true. All right, let me put my tails in my little holder. All right, so this is the back. And when you rotate it, here's the front. So all you need to do is do your little pom-pom right there for the little tail. Assembly, it says that you're just going to chain the stitches, and then as you chain across, you'll put a chain like right there, and then chain across and put one right there to hold them up there. I think it would be so adorable if you made some where like the ear was down. I'm not exactly sure how you would do, like, I think that'd be just super cute. Honestly, guys, these would be really cute as even just coasters as they are. Like, that's really cute. You could even do some white trim on the inside here. You could get some furry type yarn and do that. There are so many different options of what you can do here. And don't think that each one has to be the same color. Like, I mean, as far as like the bunny itself, you could make the center of the bunny one color, like all the puff stitches one color, and then make the last single crochet round a different color, and then make the body and everything else a different color. Like, there are so many options of what you can do here with this little piece, and so many stitches that you guys now know how to do. All right, so I'm coming back up here.
It's a great practice project.
It's so cute. It's so cute. All right, so how many of you worked along with me? Let me see. Anybody? Marilyn did. Oh, Christy finished hers. It's so cute. Oh, Marilyn and Carmen. Oh, you guys did so great. Tatiana, I saw yours too. Fantastic. Deborah. Oh, look at all of you. Dawn, beautiful. I love it. Oh my gosh. You guys are so fantastic. I love it when you share with me what you've done. Christy's made like the whole shebang. She's got, Christy's like, hey, I got one bunny. Now I have two bunnies. You know what that means? Now she has like 50 bunnies. So she's got all sorts of bunnies. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on the Michaels Community Classroom. I always have such a good time teaching these classes. It really does feel like I'm sitting down with some friends and showing you guys some new skills. Hopefully you're enjoying them as well. Make sure that you tell everybody about these wonderful classes. And if you want to follow me on social media, on Instagram, I'm the Marley Bird, or I'm just Marley Bird on YouTube. So you can find more classes and stuff that I teach over there. All right, guys, that's it for me. I'm going to hand it back to Renee. I'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. This was so fun. We would love to see your work. So if you end up posting to social, if you could use hashtag Make It With Michaels and hashtag Yarnspo, which is YARNSPO. And just a reminder that you can find more classes on michaels.com and the recording of today's class at michaels.com/classes. All right. Thanks everyone. Bye.